11. Jane Hopper. Isolation was her first prison, and losing the people she loves remains her greatest fear. 11 was raised in Hawkins' lab, torn from any real affection, and she dreads abandonment more than monsters. Every disappearance, Will in Season 1, Hopper in Season 3, Max in Season 4, tears open that same wound. The moment she asks Mike, "Am I the monster?" exposes her second fear, that her power makes her dangerous to those she's trying to save. Each confrontation, from the Demogorgon gun to Vecna, forces her to decide whether she's a protector or a threat. Yet, 11 keeps fighting, fueled by the belief that love anchors her humanity. Every victory proves she's not the monster she once feared becoming. Mike Wheeler. Loss shaped his courage and his fear. Mike can't bear the thought of losing those closest to him, especially 11 and Will. Watching Will vanish in Season 1, then believing he'd lost 11 to the Demogorgon, branded him with a terror that never really faded. Every season since, that fear drives his actions: overprotectiveness, jealousy, and desperate optimism. He's not afraid of monsters, he's afraid of failing the people he loves. When 11 is hunted by Vecna in Season 4, Mike's panic isn't about survival. It's about finding the words to reach her before it's too late. His heart is his greatest strength and his greatest weakness, a constant battle between bravery and fear of loss. Will Byers. Darkness follows wherever he goes, and the fear that it will never leave defines him. Will still feels the chill of the Upside Down long after his escape. Being kidnapped, possessed, and hunted by the Mind Flayer carved a lasting dread that he can't shake. Every shiver, every tingle on his neck reminds him that the monster might still be inside. Even when the others move on, Will senses the shadows watching, terrified that the connection will pull him back. Beneath the supernatural fear lies a quieter one, of being different, misunderstood, or left behind. He hides it well, but his eyes betray the truth. Will Byers fears that no matter how far he runs, the darkness runs too. Dustin Henderson. Laughter is his armor, and fear hides beneath every punchline. Dustin masks anxiety with charm, cracking jokes even when the world's collapsing. His fear isn't of monsters, it's of being useless when his friends need him most. From pleading with Mike not to jump off that cliff in Season 1 to panicking over Dart after realizing he adopted a baby Demogorgon, Dustin's bravery often comes with trembling hands. Underneath the humor is the fear of losing his friends or being left out of their adventures. When he returns from camp to find everyone distracted by girlfriends, that insecurity quietly surfaces. Still, Dustin turns fear into fuel, choosing laughter over panic, logic over chaos, and friendship over the terror of being forgotten. Lucas Sinclair. Fear hides behind his determination to stay strong. Lucas learned early that being cautious keeps people alive, but by Season 4, his fear becomes heartbreakingly personal. Losing Max. After her brother's death, she shuts him out. And that silence terrifies him more than any monster. When Vecna targets her, Lucas's protective instinct turns desperate. His panic as she dies in his arms is the purest expression of his deepest fear realized. Even afterward, he sits by her hospital bed, afraid to blink in case she slips away again. Beneath that courage is another layer, fear of rejection and of being left behind by friends chasing popularity or danger. Lucas fights hard, not just for survival, but against the dread of losing love itself. Max Mayfield. Guilt is her ghost, and it never lets go. Max hides behind sarcasm and headphones, but every lyric she blasts through running up that hill is a shield against memory. The death of her stepbrother Billy haunts her, twisting grief into guilt. She fears she secretly wanted him gone. That self-loathing festers until Vecna uses it against her, showing visions of Billy blaming her for his death. Beneath the tough exterior, Max fears that she deserves punishment, that she's broken beyond repair. When she writes goodbye letters, it's not bravery, it's surrender. Her real fear isn't dying, it's never feeling whole again. Yet even in her darkest moment, Max runs toward her friends and proves that love can outrun guilt. Nancy Wheeler. Perfection is her armor, but guilt keeps cracking it. Nancy still hears the echo of Barb's disappearance, the friend she left behind by that pool in Season 1. That moment defined her deepest fear, failing to protect the people she loves. Every investigation, every monster hunt, is her way of fighting back against that guilt. When Vecna drags her into a trance filled with visions of Barb's corpse, it isn't random torment, it's her worst memory replayed as punishment. She fears she's doomed to make the same mistake again, to lose another friend because she hesitated or doubted herself. Beneath her confidence lies the quiet dread of being powerless to stop tragedy, a fear that drives Nancy to face nightmares head-on. Jonathan Byers. Responsibility is his comfort and his curse. Jonathan fears losing the people who depend on him, especially Will and Joyce. When Will vanished, he searched through woods and nightmares, driven by panic that he'd already failed as a brother. That fear never left. Watching Will possessed by the Mind Flayer in Season 2 reignited it, convincing Jonathan that love means constant vigilance. He sacrifices his own future, college, relationships, because the thought of leaving his family unprotected terrifies him. Even his quiet anxiety around Nancy stems from this insecurity. He's afraid to build a life for himself if it means not being there for them. Every choice he makes is shaped by that fear, that if he looks away for one moment, everything he loves will disappear. Steve Harrington. Bravado once hid the emptiness he feared most. Steve spent high school chasing popularity, terrified of being forgotten once the parties ended. When monsters replaced popularity contests, his fear shifted, from losing status to losing people. Facing the Demogorgon was his first true reckoning. He ran, then came back swinging, proving to himself that courage mattered more than coolness. But underneath the hero act is loneliness. Watching Nancy move on and working dead-end jobs leaves him fearing a life without meaning or love. His dream of an RV full of kids isn't just fantasy, it's a confession of that fear. In protecting the younger crew, Steve finds purpose. But every battle reminds him how fragile connection is and how unbearable being alone would feel. Robin Buckley. Confidence is her disguise, but rejection is her shadow. Robin hides fear behind quick wit and non-stop chatter, terrified that if she slows down, people will see the real her and turn away. Growing up gay in 1980s, Indiana means danger in honesty. Her coming-out scene with Steve shows trembling courage wrapped in humor. Even afterward, she fears judgment, overanalyzing every glance from Vicky, terrified of reading things wrong. Socially, she worries about being too much, masking insecurity with sarcasm and speed-talking. Beneath her intelligence and bravery lies a fragile hope that someone might love her exactly as she is. Whether facing Demogorgons or heartbreak, Robin's deepest fear remains the same, being truly seen and finding out she's unlovable. Joyce Byers. Paranoia is her instinct, but it's born from love. Joyce has lived every parent's nightmare, twice. Losing Will to the Upside Down carved her deepest fear, that she'll lose her children again, no matter how hard she fights. Every strange flicker of lights, every empty room, reignites that terror. Even when Will returns, her fear shifts into constant vigilance, watching his every breath for signs the darkness is back. That dread expands to everyone she loves. Bob, then Hopper. When both vanish, Joyce refuses to rest until she knows the truth. Her panic may look irrational, but it's the reason she survives. Beneath her toughness lies a simple truth. Joyce Byers fears losing her family more than she fears the monsters outside her door. Jim Hopper. Anger hides what grief left behind. Hopper lost his daughter long before Hawkins turned upside down, and that wound never healed. His greatest fear is living through that loss again, watching someone he loves disappear and being powerless to stop it. When 11 becomes his daughter, that fear resurfaces with brutal force. His strict rules and temper aren't about control, they're protection born from panic. Every danger she faces reminds him of Sarah's hospital bed and the helplessness he swore he'd never feel again. Even in Russia, Hopper confesses he believes he's cursed, that everyone close to him dies. But it's fear, not fate, that drives him. For Hopper, love means fighting through terror, because losing family again would be worse than dying himself. Billy Hargrove. Rage was his armor, but fear built it. Billy grew up under his father's fists, learning that weakness invited pain. Every cruel smirk, every violent outburst was a shield against the terror of being powerless again. Beneath the bravado, he's just a scared boy trying to survive a home ruled by abuse. That fear of domination turns into his own cycle of control. He hurts others before they can hurt him. When the Mind Flayer possesses him, Billy's nightmare comes true. He loses control completely. For once, the predator becomes the puppet. In his final moments, standing between the monster and Max, he faces both fears, his father's voice in his head and the weakness he despised, choosing love over submission at last. Eddie Munson. Bravery was the story he never believed about himself. Eddie spent his life labeled a freak, So when horror came knocking, his instinct was to run. Watching Chrissy die shattered his confidence, leaving him paralyzed by the fear that he'd always be a coward when it mattered most. As the town turned against him, that self-image only deepened. He saw himself as weak, undeserving of heroism. But fear becomes his test in the Upside Down. When the chance to flee appears, he stays, finally facing the thing he's run from his whole life, his own doubt. Surrounded by Demobats, Eddie fights not to survive, but to prove to himself he can. Dying fearless, he conquers the one monster he never escaped, fear itself. Bob Newby. Optimism was his weapon against fear. Bob spent childhood haunted by nightmares of a clown called Mr. Baldo, a silly story that revealed something real, his lifelong habit of facing fear with kindness. That bravery matured quietly. He wasn't a fighter, but he never backed down when someone needed help. When Joyce and the others are trapped in Hawkins' lab, Bob's hands tremble as he resets the power, whispering easy peasy, like a charm against panic. Beneath the smile, he's terrified. But courage, for Bob, is doing it anyway. His last act proves it, sprinting through the corridor, heart pounding, still thinking about saving Joyce. The Demodog's attack ends him, but not before Bob Newby defeats fear the only way he knows, with love and light. Dr. Martin Brenner, Papa. Control was his comfort, and losing it was his greatest fear. Dr. Brenner built his identity around dominance, over experiments, the lab, and especially 11. When she escaped, it wasn't just a failure of science, but a personal nightmare, the loss of his creation. Every command and collar he uses hides panic that his power is slipping. The Demogorgon's rampage in Season 1 exposes that fear outright. His calm cracks as chaos spreads. In Season 4, he clings tighter, desperate to finish his work before the military or Vecna destroys it all. Even in death, begging 11 to understand him, Brenner's voice trembles, not with pride, but fear of dying unloved and forgotten. For a man obsessed with control, his final terror was powerlessness. Vecna, Henry Creel 1. Superiority masks his only weakness, fear of failure. Vecna, once Henry Creel, loathes humanity's flaws and feeds on others' pain, convinced he's above fear itself. But underneath his monstrous calm lies the terror of being ordinary, powerless, or forgotten. When 11 defeated him in 1979, sending him into the Upside Down, that humiliation became his driving force. Every victim he torments is a reflection of his own insecurity. He preys on fear to avoid feeling it. Yet when 11 confronts him again, his composure fractures. His voice rises, eyes widen, tiny cracks in godlike arrogance. Vecna doesn't fear death. He fears defeat. The proof that the lesser beings he despises can stop him. Even monsters tremble when reminded that they were once human. The Mind Flayer Shadow Monster. Emotionless by design, yet bound by instinct, the Mind Flayer operates through fear even if it doesn't feel it. Fire and heat are its natural enemies, the one force it recoils from like a living thing. When it possessed will, that weakness became visible. Every rise in temperature made it scream through him. It likes it cold, thriving only where warmth dies. In Season 3, fireworks and flames tear through its monstrous form, proving what it cannot withstand. If the Mind Flayer fears anything, it's 11. The one being who's closed its gates twice and burned its hold on the human world. For a creature born of darkness, light itself is terror, and Hawkins' heroes have learned precisely how to weaponize it.